Thank you for tuning in to Stage 2 of Tiger Valley 2018 two-man team match. I want to remind you guys that we actually got our ammunition sponsored by Bear Ammo and Xander Sporting Goods. That was a really important thing for them to do for us because it means that your Patreon dollars went further to getting us here with airfare, car, gas, and everything else that requires to get all the way out here to the middle of nowhere, Waco, Texas. I shouldn't say that. People like Waco. Anyways, no offense to our Waconians. That said, this is Stage 2. So on Stage 2, we start off shooting at some IPSC targets about how far away?
Maybe 20, 25 yards.
20, 25 yard paper targets. There's 5 of them, and 5 or 6.
We can both start engaging at the same time. We can like meet in the middle, basically.
And you need at least 2 hits in the A zone.
Correct.
So we go through these paper targets, clear the rifles. This is normal at Tiger Valley because you have to clear your rifles for safety reasons. And then we have to go to a breaching door, breach the door, navigate through this maze of stuff. There's no shooting in there until we get to these 2 windows. And then at the 2 windows, there's a set of windows on the left, a set of windows on the right with a wall in the middle. There's a bunch of targets downrange that have no shoots near them, but there's clays in the middle of those targets, and we have to neutralize those clays with no more than 2 shots per target.
Per shooter.
Per shooter.
So this is an interesting point. The language for the course is very specific, and they said, you know, no more than 2 shots from each shooter. And that's important because that allows, if you drop one or I drop one, the other shooter still has 2 shots available on that target.
So what you're saying is when I drop one, you can clean up my mess?
Hopefully.
Okay, so that's how that probably will go. Hopefully neither of us will have to do that, but that's very pertinent because words actually mean stuff, interestingly enough. And so per shooter means that it actually could be up to 4 shots per target as long as those 2 shots come from 2 different shooters. Correct.
The other thing here is we have some no-shoots that are plus 60 seconds each. And you definitely don't want to get those. Those will ruin your day.
So my like 1 foot high bore offset, I have to be very cognizant of that.
Right. So the strategy I'd recommend for you is take the closer targets that have a full presentation first, and then move on to the ones that are more restricted.
Absolutely. That's going to be the goal. So we're going to run over there. We're going to see what happens. Stay tuned.
Ready. Stand by. Go.
Clear, go! Clear.
Clear, go. Stop.
All right, so our second stage, some of the rust kind of came off the engine, and it went really well. We had a raw time of 125.12 or something like that.
Right.
But we did it clean. We missed nothing. We cleared all the targets. We neutralized all the clays with the appropriate amounts of rounds fired, and we hit no hostages.
Right.
One of the things I did practice, I talked about in Stage 1, was practicing your gear and testing everything before you come to the match. And I had obviously not tested my jungle clip mag, and it wouldn't fit with the optic. But one thing I did do before coming to the match is I did test my relatively short range bore offset on paper, so that I knew where to hold off with this really high offset on paper. I obviously had a little bit of a bore offset issue on the glass on Stage 1, but that's different than having an issue of where to aim. So in regards to this, I knew pretty much where to aim to hit those clay pigeons, but not hit the no-shoots, which by the way is pretty much holding a chevron high. Hard to explain without seeing it, but it worked, and I got all the clays, and you did too. And I think we actually you and I both neutralized the clays kind of at the same time.
I think I was a little bit quicker, but I did another scan back and forth across my area to make sure everything was good.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's one of those things like if you see your partner is still engaged,
Yep.
you might as well take the time to make sure that everything's dead in your zone first.
That's true. That's true. Although we were close, I think. So with that said, everything went wonderfully on that one. There were no issues whatsoever, and I think we had one of the better runs on the squad, actually.
Yes, a couple of things to point out. Before the stage, we coordinated on the paper which targets we were going to engage in what sequence.
Yep.
Interesting thing, when I was on target, sometimes when you shot, it disturbed my sight picture.
Oh.
So on a few of the targets, I shot 3 times just to be sure.
So did I.
So that was something we hadn't anticipated, that both of us being posted up on the barricade could potentially disturb each other's sight picture enough, even at what, 30 yards those targets were at?
It was enough, and these had to be A-zone hits, or you weren't going to get a neutralize.
One minor hang-up was I was going to go through the door first, but it didn't work out that way, but we just rolled through it.
Yep.
And otherwise, I think it went pretty smooth.
That's one of the things. You can plan all these things out till nauseam, and the reality is when the timer's going off, little things like that happen. We had planned on the first paper array to go right to left, left to right, and that worked out perfectly. We had planned that I was going to be the one to breach the door. We had planned that you would be the first one to go through the door once I breached the door. That went awry. But we had also planned that we were both post on the left side of the window arrays we were going to shoot from. So I went to my left side of the array, you went to your left side of the array, and really we flowed okay. I don't think that cost us.
No.
And then we were going to flow to the right. And then if there was an issue with either one of us not neutralizing our targets, we were going to vocalize that, and we were going to complete whatever we needed to get the maximum of 4 shots fired on the clays, but we didn't need to. We got them both.
Right.
Then we booked on back, and bingo bongo, a clean stage.
And I actually shot this on 2-power because even on 2-power, like sometimes seeing the hits on the clays with rifle rounds was difficult.
I shot this on 4-power because this is 4-power. But it was very clear when they broke with this, even with a hold, because that 4-power was really a little more than I needed at that
Right.
range. But it actually was not prohibitive in terms of actually engaging the targets. It actually worked out okay.
It's kind of counterintuitive, but maybe sometimes when the shots really matter more than speed, using a magnified optic, even at CQB ranges, is a necessary thing.
If you need to identify what happened with the round fired in a very clear and evident way, such as identifying a hole in a clay pigeon, magnification still helps even at close range. And when time isn't the emphasis, but cleanliness of shooting and skill set testing is, which is what Tiger Valley is really good about doing, then things like a magnification liability that exists in a match which is all raw speed becomes less evident, and it makes it more, the scope becomes okay. This is where you see like ACOGs and 4X scopes being kind of a standard. Like at the end of World War II, everyone using 4X scopes. Pretty much everything was 3.5 or 4X. Then the ACOG's 4X, and you still see them used heavily in combat today. Even though they're not variables, speed matters, but not as much as sometimes we emphasize in certain shooting environments. And that's where I think we're seeing here today. So we have 2 more stages today, right?
At least 2.
At least 2. So that was stage 2. Stay tuned for stage 3 of Targa Valley 2018.